Demands for police reform are loud in the U.S. again tonight. People are taking to the streets in multiple cities. New York, Washington, Chicago, and of course, Memphis itself, all seeing demonstrations after the release of disturbing police video showing the beating of Tyre Nichols. This is just one image from that video. It runs long and it is so difficult to watch, especially difficult for Tyre Nichols' family. Tony Romanucci is one of the lawyers representing that family. He was at a news conference with them today, and he joins us from Chicago tonight. In fact, you're in your car just having come from the airport. Mr. Romanucci, I'd like to start by talking about Tyre Nichols and his family. What are they telling you?
Well, they are telling me that they are satisfied with the charges that were brought against the officers. Although they were demanding and asking for murder charges, when you look at the breadth and the depth of the charges that were brought against these officers, this is satisfying to the family. These officers are being charged with kidnapping. They are being charged with obstruction. They are being charged with in-concert activity together. And they're being charged with second-degree murder. All of this adds up to something that they know which was true, and that is that Tyre was helpless and defenseless when these 5 police officers severely beat him.
Gut-wrenching, heartbreaking. I mean, so many words describe that video. Certainly difficult to watch. What was your reaction when you saw it?
Look, when I saw the video on Monday, it was disbelief. I've been around this practice of law, civil rights for many, many years, and I had never seen anything like that I was so closely related to. Of course, you heard Chief Davis say that she likens this to Rodney King, but worse. And now we know that that's true. What we saw was not exaggerated. It was not overstated. And keep in mind that we had a second autopsy conducted this week. And our medical examiner, and she's allowed us to quote her on this, has said that his injuries are consistent with the severe beating that we saw on the video.
You know, here in Canada, police, prosecutors, basically, governments are very, very careful about saying virtually nothing about a case before trial, much less releasing a video like this. So help us understand, after the release of such graphic, emotional video, can you have a fair trial?
Well, you're going to have a fair trial. I mean, there's going to have to be. We're going to have to figure it out. I mean, first of all, you can see that the city of Memphis moved with extreme rapidity in charging these officers because they saw what the video proved, or what they saw, what we're all seeing now, and that is that there was really no justification for this. Secondly, every defendant in this country is entitled to a constitutional right of innocence before proven guilty, and a Fifth Amendment right. So there will be a way that they will receive a fair trial, and I'm sure justice will be handed to them as the system was designed for.
We have just 30 seconds, maybe not a fair question in that time, but you also represented George Floyd's family. It's happened again. I mean, what is it going to take in the States to stop this kind of response by police in these kinds of cases?
That is an extremely fair question, and I know what the answer is. The answer is that the lawmakers in Washington, D.C., who did not vote for the George Floyd Police Reforming Act must vote in favor of it. We need to renew the bill, and our states need to act with uniformity and not act individually. I am proud that my state of Illinois has passed police reform, but we all need to be following the same rules, and that's when we'll see change in this country.
Well, you've just come back to Chicago from Memphis. You're in your car now. We appreciate you taking our call. Mr. Romanucci, thank you very much.
Thank you, and have a good night to all.
So many people processing what they saw in the video tonight. And of course, the people of Memphis hit hard by this in many cases. So let's go to Reverend Earl Fisher. He's in that city. He's the pastor at a Baptist church there and a police reform advocate. And Reverend Fisher, let me begin with your reaction to the video.
Well, thank you for having me. And I consider myself to be very well-spoken and have a large vocabulary, but I don't know if there's anything that I can articulate insofar as capturing the totality of the sentiment shared when I was struck with the video. And I say that because I didn't plan to watch it, and I ended up in a situation where I had to see like glimpses of it and then I heard it. But any segment of it, any snippet of it is enough to make one sick to their stomach. And I think the way that, Chief Davis and Attorney Crump and Tyree Nichols' family, especially his mother and father, who our heart goes out to, the way that they've tried to describe it, I think, is probably as best as you can do. Heinous, human pinata, on par, if not worse than Rodney King. All of those things are valuable in trying to understand the totality and the gravity of the video and what this means for the city.
The 5 police officers charged with second-degree murder here are Black. And I wonder what you'd say, particularly for the people watching here from Canada, who might look at that and say, well, since the police officers are Black, does that mean that race is not an issue here?
Yeah, I think Cornel West once said, when you're playing with the deck in America, every card in the deck is a race card. But beyond that, I would say several years ago at the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, you heard people saying Blue Lives Matter. And that was indication that it didn't matter if the officer was Black or brown or white. As Attorney Crump has said, and as others have said, what is most valuable in those exchanges is not the race or the ethnicity of the officer. It's the race and the ethnicity of the person that is being policed. Black people in Memphis and Shelby County and all around the country know generally when the police show up, it is not to protect and serve. It is to punish and surveil. We see that happening here with Tyree Nichols. We've seen that in Memphis over the last several years because this is not isolated from the broader system and structure of policing that we've been advocating for reforms for on the front line for the last several years. And even though the attorney earlier applauded the quote unquote speed and quickness and rapidity by which the city and the Memphis Police Department moved, they did that in response, I believe, to the fierce activism and organizing that has been taking place over the last several years. And we were proposing reforms that probably could have stopped this from happening had they been responsive several years ago. But here we are, and now we have to try to pick up the pieces, be there for the family, but especially implement the type of structural and systemic changes to make sure that these things don't happen again.
We only have about 30 seconds, but I think this is important within that time frame. Can you give us an example of a reform that if the Memphis Police Force did it, this would be less likely to happen again?
Well, we've said for years, outside of all of the stuff like in the George Floyd Policing Act and other reforms that have been proposed around the country that are similar to the 8 Can't Wait that we still haven't really enforced, even though we claim to have implemented it, we advocated for activists and organizers conducting cultural sensitivity training for the police department. We've advocated for better mental health services and mandatory therapy and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things that we think could have stopped this from happening. But at the end of the day, there was clearly not enough oversight. There was not enough managerial duty from people at the top brass of the Memphis Police mm-hmm. Department. It would not have happened. We deserve better. And so we need to change the things that we can change while we can.
You deserve better. Reverend Fisher, thank you very much for speaking with us tonight.
Thank you.